Hello, everyone. My name is Nick Dallett. I am a business continuity professional, and today I am going to be showing you how to build the recovery time capability heat map within Tableau. I'm going to save the explanation of what this is, how it's used to drive change. I have a blog post about that. I'm going to drop the link right down in the description. If you have any questions about this, feel free to reach out in the comments and let's go. Really, basically, what this is a map showing on the x-axis recovery time for various capabilities within your organization, and on the y-axis showing our confidence in those measured recovery times. Seeing as how in any organization of any medium or to large size, you're going to have things that you just haven't tested, you just have an idea about. You've got things that you've probably done a tabletop walkthrough, might have gotten a little bit more confidence in those recovery times, and then a smaller subset of things for which you've actually done a practical demonstration of recovery. All right. Uh, Building this starts in a data source. So today I'm just going to use an Excel spreadsheet. So here I have an Excel spreadsheet with various capabilities listed for a small to medium sized 3D printing and distribution company. This is a fictional company that I call PrintMuse. In this file, I've got a list of these capabilities. I've got the capability names here. And then for each capability, I'm going to go all the way over to the right here. I've listed its criticality on a scale of 0 to 40. This is completely arbitrary. You could have maybe high, medium, low. There's all kinds of ways you can decide what your criticality is. This is just an attribute of our data, and I've made a continuous scale from 0 to 40, with 40 being the most critical, 0 being the least. Next, we've got scope. Scope talks about how large this area is, how complex it is. If you're in an IT organization and you're talking about capabilities which consist of tech services, you may count how many services are in that domain. If it has to do with people, it might have to do with how many functions or how many people you have. Up to you to decide how to define your scope. It's just another data attribute, and I'm going to show you how we can visualize these various data dimensions within Tableau. We have here the last test date and the last test type. And I've split this into three different types of tests, one being a practical demonstration, one being a tabletop or a walkthrough exercise, and then finally untested. You may have different testing types in your organization which give different layers of confidence. Again, up to you how you use this. This is just the model that I'm using for this example. Then we get to the key things. The two key things we're going to use for this plot. First is recovery time. This is expressed in hours. This is so we get an apples to apples comparison across a wide range of recovery times, some of which may be just minutes. You may have some capabilities that you can get back up and running in 15 minutes. You may have other capabilities that in a disaster situation, it could take you months to recover. Let's just express all of those in hours, whether it's fractional hours up to whole hours. And then finally, we have confidence. Confidence is for the recovery time that you're reporting, how sure are you that that recovery time is correct? And this is a continuous scale from 0 to 100%. And so these values are going to be fractional values between 0 and 1. All right, that is our data source. Let's go ahead and hop over to Tableau. So in Tableau, I've gone ahead and I've imported my data source, and I'm just going to create a brand new sheet here. And I'm going to just start out by taking that confidence and that criticality, or sorry, the confidence and the recovery time. Recovery time, I'm going to drag into rows, and confidence, I'm going to drag into columns. Now, Tableau by default is going to bring this up into a sum, and so we're going to get one value. What we want is we want these to be dimensions. So I'm going to set those both to dimension. And that's going to give us the scatter plot that we expect here. By default, this is just going to come up as a regular scatter plot here. And excuse me, I've got these reversed. There we go. When it comes up with this scatter plot, if you've got a wide diversity of recovery times, you're going to see that the recovery time that's the outlier out here is going to push everything else over close to that left axis. And really what we want to be able to see is we want to be able to see the spread of everything. And so in order to correct for that, we could drop that outlier out, but I prefer to see all the data. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click on this axis here, and I'm just going to set this scale to logarithmic. And what that's going to do is it's going to even out that data across the scale. So the things that take just minutes to recover, you can see all that fine detail while not losing the outliers that are all the way out at the left edge. Okay, so that's the basic scatter plot that we want. We could just leave it here, but what I want to do is I want to add a few more data dimensions. And the things I want to be able to see here is for each of these capabilities, I want to be able to see what it is. I want to be able to see the scope of that capability, and I want to see the criticality of that capability. And so I'm going to go ahead and drag some of these things in. I am going to take the scope, and I'm going to use that to display the size of that shape. And there's not a lot of variability here, so I'm just going to scale that up a little bit just so it's a little bit more visible. And then for complexity, or rather for criticality, I'm going to drag that onto color. And what that's going to do is going to vary the color so that we can see at a glance what the scale and the criticality is of each of these capabilities. Now, we're going to see that a little bit better if we take the shape here and choose the filled shape. So there we go. And I like to have a little bit more of a palette here. So I'm going to, instead of using the automatic, I like the green gold. You could go with a red to gold. It really doesn't matter. Just choose something that's a visual language that you like. I found with this particular data set that it tends to put you're going to see that it puts the low values as gold. I really want to have the lower criticality values be green and higher criticality be gold. So I'm just going to click reverse there. And then, if you want to kind of bucket these things a little bit, you can do this a stepped color. I'm going to say 7 steps, just arbitrarily there, so that we get a good range, and that will visually indicate, how many things we have in the organization that are highly critical and how many things are less critical, and that'll really help us evaluate the appropriateness of our recovery times here. Okay, all right, this is starting to flesh out pretty well. I do want to be able to see what these capabilities are. As you see, we don't have this in the tooltip. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take that capability name. I'm going to drag it onto our label so that they actually show in the chart. But I'm also going to drag it into the tooltip. So now the tooltip has that. There's a couple of other things I'd love to put in that tooltip, and that is the last test date and the last test type. And so once we do that, then we've got pretty much all the data that we want to know. When we mouse over one of these capabilities, we can also see the name of the capability here. All right. Now, I've got this good chart. This tells me relatively where we are, but what it doesn't tell me is, are these capabilities able to recover within our company's recovery time objective? Now, for PrintMuse, their goal is simple. They just want to be able to recover their ability to service customers within 12 hours of a major incident. And so what I want to do is here add a reference line. So I'm going to go down here to the x-axis. I'm going to choose to add a reference line, and we are going to add a constant line at the value 12, because that's 12 hours. I want the label to be custom here, and I'm going to call this critical RTO. And we don't need a tooltip on this reference line, so we're going to take that out. There we go. Now I do want to just do a little bit of formatting here just to make this a little bit prettier. I'm going to take the alignment. I'm going to go ahead and turn that vertical and display it at the top, just so it's kind of out of the way and just kind of clearly labels what that is. Okay, so there's our chart with our RTO line, and then that tells us stuff to the left of this line is going to be able to recover within our RTO. Stuff at the top here, we've actually demonstrated that. In the middle, it's like tabletop. In the bottom, it's untested. Where are those lines exactly? Well, let's go ahead and put in those reference lines too. So I'm going to click on the vertical axis. I'm going to add a reference line. And my first reference line, these are also going to be constants. My first reference line is going to be at 0, all the way down at the bottom of the chart. And I am going to add a label here, and I'm going to call this untested. Again, we don't need a tooltip here. Then I'm going to go in and I'm going to add a second line. This is going to be right at about the 1/3 mark. So remember, these are decimal values between 0 and 1. So we want to go .33. The value here is going to be tabletop, because these are the things that have had a tabletop walkthrough. And then we're going to add one last line, and this line is going to be at about the 2/3 mark, so that's 0.66. This is going to be a custom value, and we're going to call this demonstration. No tooltip. All right, so there we go. Once again, I'm going to do a little formatting here. I kind of like the right alignment here, so I'm going to control click all three of these lines, choose format, and we're just going to set the alignment to be right aligned there. So there you go. That is pretty much everything that we want in our plot. The last thing I want to do though is I don't want this to just be a static plot. I actually want this to be dynamic. I want to be able to come in here and sort and filter this to be able to see different aspects and be able to analyze the data when it comes in. So I'm gonna move these cards, which are, it's a nice little legend, but they don't really give us any actionability. And I'm gonna add a couple of filters in here. So I'm gonna drag in a filter for the test type, and I'm going to use all values in the data. I'm going to bring in a filter whoopsie. I'm going to go ahead and bring in a filter for scope. And yeah, we can just go with that for now. And so I am going to show the filter that's going to bring it in over here. Scope, we're going to show filter over here as well. And I think I'm also going to bring in criticality. That way we can go ahead and see values, how our values vary by criticality. And so now that we have these, we can actually use this. So for example, let's say I want to see only the things in that are top critical items. So I want to look at things, say, between 30 and 40. There we go. So now I can see how many things within our top critical things are recovering within that time frame. You can see that there. Employee SEC access credentials right on that RTO. And here, over here, legal and compliance record security access control systems. These are falling outside of our RTO, so I probably want to put some attention there. They're highly confident values because we've actually, looks like we've done a demonstration for these. So those are going to be my areas of greatest concern, and having this filter allows that. Another thing we can do is we can say, well, I just want to look at my large scope items. These are going to be the hardest to test. And, or maybe I want to say, what are all the things where we've got our values through demonstration? Maybe what are all the things that are untested? These filters will let us get that. So that is everything I have to show you today. Please refer to the blog post in the Tuning Forks blog for a lot more information about how we're going to use this to drive change in our organization. And thanks a lot for watching today.